Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. I'm your host, Tim Spring, and today I'm joined by Indicio's Vice President of Business Development, James Schulte, and he's here to share his experience this week at the 1EdTech Digital Credential Summit. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us, James. Before we start, could you tell us a little bit about the 1EdTech consortium? Kind of who they are and what they do.
Yeah. First, I'm really excited to be here. I'm just here in the conference center cafeteria. So if you hear any noise in the background, it's all the other attendees. So it's been a great week so far. A lot of really good conversations. So to answer your question about what 1EdTech is, they're a member-based consortium that collaborates in setting standards for education technology. So making sure that all the systems work together, that they interoperate well. And ultimately for the benefit of universities and students, and to make education more accessible and more user-friendly. So yeah, I'd say that's their main mission, but they're involved in all sorts of standards around learning management systems, around credentials, for example, at this whole summit. Yeah.
All right, awesome. And could you tell us a little bit about the summit, kind of, the purpose of it, who's there, what kind of information is being shared?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one specifically is their Digital Credential Summit. So the main emphasis is all about digital credentials. I believe last year or the year before is when they released their first spec around the Open Badges 3.0 credential specification. So the newest version of Open Badges that aligns with the W3C verifiable credential data model. So that's a reason that Indicio is particularly excited about this, and a reason that we are offering it as part of Proven. So at this conference, they're bringing together academic institutions, ed tech vendors, government employees, anyone who has an interest in higher learning in K through 12, recruiting, hiring, filling the skills gap. Those are most of the participants. Most of the sessions have been about how to implement badging programs, how to implement the standards, how to effectively roll out programs, what type of options are available. So there's been a mix of technical discussions, as well as more of the marketing communication side around these programs.
All right, very cool. So you mentioned, right, there's quite a few sessions going on. Are there any in particular that stuck out to you?
Yeah, so there have been quite a few. There was one yesterday that I went to specifically. It was called Empowering Student Achievement in Higher Education. And the panel talked about how with their digital credential programs, they've been able to increase class participation, increase hiring. And then on the hiring side, they've been able to better fill open positions because they're able to seek out individuals with very particular skills and micro credentials. So it was really exciting to learn about real use cases and real deployments of how this technology is working. There have been quite a few sessions about micro credentialing, which I think from a high view is really interesting. And so just to give a little definition around micro credentialing, traditionally higher education, we put a lot of emphasis on the diploma or the degree and what type of opportunities that unlocks. And a diploma is a more comprehensive representation of your academic career, you could say. But there's been a movement more in the direction of micro credentialing, so very specific skills that don't necessarily take a 4-year degree. Whether it's a specific type of coding language that you're skilled in, a certain type of welding, for example, certain type of mechanic, IT skill, that you wouldn't necessarily need to take a whole bunch of general classes to take, but you could take very specific classes or certifications for those things. Those are called micro credentials. And with Open Badges 3.0, it makes it so that the micro credentialing can be verifiable. So that is enticing for students because it enables them to efficiently gain specific skills that they need for getting hired at very specific jobs or places. So that's been really interesting to learn about and see the opportunities there popping up.
All right. No, that's super interesting. Were there any examples of that being implemented in the real world yet? Or is that more of like this is where everyone thinks the market is going and this is what we want to cater to going forward?
Mhm. Yeah, so there are quite a few real world cases. In fact, there are some governments around the world who are starting to mandate micro-credentialing as part of their national curriculum. So a lot of investment going into that because they're realizing with widespread labor shortages that there needs to be a more efficient way to get people educated in certain fields and get them hired quicker. I can't remember the countries off the top of my head, but there were a couple that were showcased here. Also, a couple organizations here we're talking about partners are working with to enable their micro-credentialing and learning pathways programs. The learning pathways programs is also an interesting concept of it's essentially like it sounds like a learning pathway, a pathway of set credentials that you gain to have access to certain markets or certain jobs. So yeah, it's really interesting.
So if we could dive a little deeper into the learner pathway, how would they see that, actually looking in practice? Would that be a bunch of credentials they kind of accrue, or is that one credential they've completed this learner pathway, they can show that to employers or whoever needs to see it? How
Mhm.
does that look in the 1EdTech's mind?
Yeah, so kind of the first option that you described, it's a collection of credentials, experiences, skills, micro credentials along the way. One other standard that the 1EdTech Consortium has developed is the CLR standard, the Comprehensive Learner Record. And it's essentially a personalized digital record that shows, yeah, exactly that, those skills and credentials that you've learned throughout a certain time period or throughout your entire academic career. There's an emphasis on beyond K to 12, but into higher learning and then lifelong learnings after graduation, after you complete your graduate studies. That even beyond that, you can learn additional skills and have credentials to prove it, and that would all be held in a CLR. The comprehensive learner record, they're on their second edition of that, so CLR 2.0. And so yeah, CLR 2.0 and Open Badges 3.0 are, I would say, the really exciting topics at the conference right now.
All right. That's super interesting to think of both the diploma and then drilling down into, okay, well, you're very specific into, Java or C++ or whatever they're doing. So we are coming to the end of our time here, but I was curious if you could leave us with just a few takeaways and things that have stuck with you from the Digital Credential Summit and your time there.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, it's been fantastic. It's been great to learn more about initiatives going on, pilots that people are running, the adoption of Open Badges 3.0. One thing I have noticed is the terminology and the understanding of verifiable credentials. I've kind of heard it used in two contexts here. In my mind, I kind of see it as uppercase verifiable credentials and lowercase verifiable credentials. In our industry, we understand verifiable credentials as credentials that align with the W3C verifiable data model, the issuer holder verifier and the establishment of cryptographic trust. And in other cases here, I've heard verifiable credentials used as a general descriptor of any sort of credential that is verifiable. And in my mind, they're two very different things with very different capabilities. And so with Open Badges 3.0 aligning with that verifiable data model, that's particularly exciting because it brings that data sovereignty to the user. It brings that portability. It brings that ability to withhold information, to share information, and to act as the center point in a three-sided market as a holder of a credential. So it's been exciting meeting with other vendors and seeing adoption of the uppercase verifiable credential model that we're obviously very big fans of. So yeah, I'd say those are my big takeaways. Definitely a big fan of this conference and the work that's going on here. A lot of really impressive organizations that are working together to drive adoption of standards and privacy preserving technology in the education sector. So yeah, thrilled to be here.
No, it sounds like a great time, and I'm glad to hear about the work going on as well. Giving the students a lot more power over their degrees and micro-credentialing sounds like super interesting topics. And also with the new Open Badges 3.0, they don't have to get back in touch with the school to prove they have all these things, right? So it definitely sounds like a huge boon for everybody in terms of, time and money savings there. Unfortunately, that is our time for the day, James. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. If you at home are interested in learning more about verifiable credential technology, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to bring you some more educational content. If you have any questions or specific topics that you'd like for us to cover, please go ahead and leave a comment below. We'll be sure to read and address them. And thank you again to you, James. If people would like to learn a bit more about the conference or, any of the topics that we've been talking about today, where would you suggest they look?
Well, I believe we have a blog coming out early next week about why you should use verifiable credentials in education. So highly recommend checking that out.